All right, welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Bernd. Evan, how we doing?
We're doing well. It has been a minute.
Yes. Yes, it has. So, if you guys are wondering why we didn't put a podcast out sooner, well, I was on vacation. Okay. I was out visiting my brother in Colorado, and I had an inkling that John Horst was coming to the end of his head coaching search, just based on a couple of different things. The first thing you heard about was the three names that were left still in contention for the job. So if you remember those names, it was Adrian Griffin, Nick Nurse, and Kenny Atkinson.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't hate really any of those names. I mean, like, there was no sexy names that really stood out to me. Okay. I think everybody would have had a problem with each. Okay. There was maybe talk that Milwaukee could have been interested in Monty Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any Bucks fan would have liked that, just based on the fact, when the Suns and the Bucks made it to the 2021 finals, Mike Budenholzer outcoached Monty Williams, which I don't know if I'd necessarily like that term, because I just think Milwaukee that year had a better team. And it was 6 games. It was a competitive series. So I don't think Monty Williams would have been the answer. And now, of course, he lands in not a better situation, but he has a job. He's now got a bag from the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I honestly did not realize as a coach you could make that much money.
And this is what I go back to saying to you, Evan, earlier, is that when I watch a regular season game, a Bucks and Pistons regular season game, I'm like, are we really sure Detroit has a plan? Because every year it seems like, they're rebuilding.
Yep.
What I think they're doing is that I think they're just throwing money against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think really there's any coach in the league. Maybe you could pick out like Spoelstra now, based on what we know now, could get that much money. Monty Williams, I'm not sure that a team that, because what did he really have to do? Okay, because you had Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and you throw Kevin Durant in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and obviously, DeAndre Ayton, you could consider him to be a top 15 player. I know him and Monty Williams had their issues. Okay, but I don't think it was more so Monty Williams coaching more than Phoenix just had a really talented team. And obviously now he got a bag in Detroit. I think I didn't see too many people want this guy, but due to the fact he went to Marquette, Doc Rivers. I
would have been mortified if the Bucks hired Doc Rivers.
I would have too, because here's the thing. We're not saying Doc Rivers isn't a good coach, because I don't think any coach could just roll in and just win 50 games. He's a horrible postseason coach. Honestly, I think he's worse than Mike Budenholzer. He really is. You can't lose 10 game sevens in your coaching career and be like, oh, well, that guy's a successful coach.
That
would have killed me. Okay, that would have killed me. So again, when you really look at this coaching search, okay, how many names, Evan, really stuck out to you that was like, oh, that guy right there?
Maybe 3. Charles Lee, Nick Nurse, Griffin. Again, we talk about Monty Williams as a very low downfall, a just in case. But there wasn't a lot of guys who I was like, that is the person they need to go get immediately. Because there were a lot of big names out there, and it's not like they could have made a bad decision, but it wasn't like there was just one person that everyone was fighting over.
And look, I was on the boat to hire Charles Lee.
Mm-hmm.
However, based on the reaction that Adrian Griffin got from being hired, I think the Bucks fans would have lost their minds if Charles Lee was hired.
Yeah.
Like they were, and again, I love Bucks fans. Don't get me wrong. I get they're passionate. But the way that they dealt with this coaching search was nothing short of annoying. Okay. Every single name that the Bucks interviewed, oh my God, we can't hire this guy. No, they're going through a process. Okay. I swear to you. Like when they hired, when they were interviewing guys like James Borrego from the who used to coach the Hornets, and Scott Brooks, okay, and like Mark Jackson, who at this point now is a courtesy interview. Like Bucks fans were losing their minds after every single interview. I'm like, you would have thought they were in the room with them. It was so funny to me. And then Adrian Griffin, he got such a lukewarm reaction to it being due to him being hired. I don't think anybody was very excited when Adrian Griffin got hired.
Yeah, there's always in all of sports, all teams, there's always that group of people who will complain about every single move made by the team that you cheer for every time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there was more surprise that Chris Quinn didn't get more of a look, because based on how, he's part of the Heat culture and how the Heat made an improbable run to the NBA Finals. And the fact that, Miami quickly swatted Milwaukee away like a fly in 5 games, you would have thought, Chris Quinn, but who knows? Why Miami is such a good team. I get that organizationally, top to bottom, top-notch organization. But, that doesn't always equate to, when teams steal, assistants from really good teams, sometimes guys are just meant to be assistants. Okay, I think it'd be easy for everyone to say, well, they got to steal someone from the Heat.
That doesn't mean you're going to go win the finals, because the Heat had this run and now it's like nothing is ever guaranteed.
Yeah, and I don't really understand it, because it's like, well, Chris Quinn would have been a first-time coach. He's never coached before. That's the thing is, the NBA head coaching search, there wasn't a lot of names that were like, well, we got to get this guy. Okay. Yep. If you want to tell me Nick Nurse, I would have told you I wasn't sure about Nick Nurse, just because of the fact that, when you talk about guys like this, you're like, well, what makes Nick Nurse stand out? Well, he's an NBA champion. What? Okay. 2019, you won the championship with Kawhi Leonard and, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and, really those two.
Go down.
Missed most of that series. Okay. Mike Budenholzer is an NBA champion. Is he going to get another head coaching job? I mean, it's not going to happen this year, but I could see him getting a job down the road. Really, this is the unfortunate part. The only name that was like a household name that, we got to go get this guy, was Ime Udoka, and he got hired by the Rockets. So if Milwaukee would have acted a little quicker, they've hired Ime Udoka. I'm not sure, because a lot of people are going to bring up that situation that happened in Boston. We still really don't know what that situation is. We know he got suspended a year, and there's a lot of rumors about it. But I don't really know if we could sit here and be like, Ime Udoka should be the head coach. And look, it's unfortunate that a story like this has to come out. But, Adrian Griffin, there's that alleged a domestic violence case made by his ex-wife.
Even though, people some jump to conclusion on that, but if you keep reading, the kid said no. It was yes.
It's alleged. The kid's like, yeah, he was a good father to us. All this other stuff. Okay, it's alleged. It's a tough situation when stuff like that happens, because to a lot of fans that can cloud our judgment of the guy, because again, everybody has a past. Okay. so I'm not gonna sit here and cast aspersions on, because some people when more stuff comes out, then it's like, well, did they do a thorough background check of the person they were hiring? And it's like, well, sometimes it's like, sometimes when an incident like say happens in like, I don't know, 1997, it's kind of hard to do. Like, what are you gonna do? Like talk to where they went to college or how they were. Like, it's like not everyone is perfect, okay?
Mhm.
And I think everybody has a past. So this didn't cloud my judgment. I'm just saying there were allegations that came out of Griffin made by his ex-wife.
Yep.
So I guess I know I went kind of long here, but Evan, what was your initial reaction when the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin?
It was one of those like surprising ones because again, it wasn't like the name that you always saw at the top of the list for the Bucks. But I think what helps and what people I think don't see is that Giannis kind of vouched for him. So kind of seeing that he had a big input in it is helpful, especially like future wise. I mean, he had a saying in getting Budenholzer, and that got him a ring in a few years. Once they got the team built to win. So again, it was a little surprising, but when you kind of look more into Griffin as like a coach and player, I mean, he helped assist for the Bucks 2008 to 2010. He was traded to the Bucks as a player, but then did not play after that. He like played for like, you get like your 5-minute stint with them and then help coach. So familiar with the area, the team or the organization. But I'm excited. I think he's 48, and I think that's younger for head coaches. And a first year. So again, I'm excited. I think it again kind of caught off guard just because again, it wasn't your main guy that you were going for. But when you see that your superstar player helped to get him and wanted to get him, and everyone's talking all at once about who they believe is the next guy, and whatever they pick, I just kind of have to rock with.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Bucks, we'll call them media people because these are like they're Bucks Twitter fans, whatever you want to call them. Like they have a huge following on Twitter, and they make their living tweeting about the Bucks. I think a couple people had a problem with this being a Giannis hire, where they like use Giannis as the main voice in the organization. And honestly, I don't have a problem with Giannis being the main voice of the organization.
That should be a huge thing because do you want him to leave? Like,
because he could, because there are reports, okay, and this is factual, that Giannis this September is going to be a big month for the Milwaukee Bucks because after this, because he signed the Supermax extension in 2020, and he could leave by 2025. And if Milwaukee remains competitive, then he'll stay. But it's just people like, well, this was Giannis hire. Well, okay, he's not like people are treating him like he's like LeBron James, like trading for Russell Westbrook. I'm like, all he did was just give his input on who the head coach is.
Yep.
Like Giannis has a prominent voice in the organization. Oh, this is Giannis hire. Like players run the league. Get used to it. Okay. If LeBron James were on the Bucks, he would have the same prominent voice. The one part that kind of struck me as interesting though is I think Griffin had dinner with Giannis and Chris Middleton.
Yep. Same thing for Budenholzer as well.
Okay. The Chris Middleton aspect of this is kind of interesting to me.
Yep.
Just because we don't even know if he's going to be on the team next year.
Correct. Or does that mean that he is going to be on the team?
That's what I was thinking. He's got a $40 million player option. So, is he going to opt into that? And look, the one guy that I think should be kind of looked at this year is John Horst. John Horst, this is a big offseason for him because how he constructs the roster. I brought this up yesterday in my blog that I wrote. Go check it out. Around Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, Giannis, and if Chris Middleton decides to come back, who are the other guys that are going to be on the team?
Mhm.
Okay, I think there have been talks and rumblings that maybe the Bucks should get rid of Bobby Portis,
Mhm.
or maybe they should, think about what kind of offense they want to be. Do they want to be the team that they were under Mike Budenholzer, where they just jack up a bunch of threes, or do they want to? And again, I don't really know what other offense they really tried to run, because that's really all they've done in the Mike Budenholzer era is like try to get a bunch of 3-point shooters and jack up threes. And at this point, I mean, it didn't work. It hasn't worked the last 2 playoffs. Okay. I and again, it didn't work. It didn't work for the Celtics when they tried to do it.
Mhm.
So I don't really know. It's so hard. It's so hard now because the NBA is predicated on 3-point shooting. And it's like, I don't really know what the solution is, because it's like, well, they got to get more consistent shooters. It's so hard. It's so hard to do that because you think the most consistent guys that could shoot can't. Like Pat Connaughton had a tough year this year. Grayson Allen was up and down. Bobby Portis, I think he was on his way to having a career year before
Mhm.
spraining his MCL halfway through the year. So, I don't really know what the solution is. And God forbid Milwaukee doesn't have a lot of money in salary cap space. They're going to have to dip into the luxury tax just a little bit if they want to and are so inclined. But I mean, look, just they gotta get like better or more consistent bench players around the big 4.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that something changes with their offense, like you were saying, like the 3-point thing. I hate it. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. But it's something that's just it's so unrealistic. You can't expect every single player on your team who is considered to be a 3-point shooter to shoot 35 to 40%.
Mm-hmm.
It's unrealistic and it's never going to happen. And if it does, then that's something that will never happen again. And it's annoying because it's such a they relied so much on it that it just like, I feel like it's a lot like mental too, because like you're focusing so much on just making threes, and when you don't make any threes and that's what you're told to do, like you just keep shooting them and nothing else changes because that's what you're told to do. So I hope some of these guys stay because I think they could be helpful on the end outside of just 3-point shooting. I think Grayson's a really good driver. I think Bobby Portis is getting there, working around the paint or in the paint and around the rim, and one of their better 3-point shooters, unironically, as a power forward more, and Brook too. So I'm hoping some of these guys stay and they can work like a different way around it instead of trying not to dump and hope they get guys back. Because honestly, at this point, it's like all Wisconsin sports, they just keep getting these guys who are older already and they're not getting younger. And it's hard to be the oldest average age team just because they think that getting, again, those veteran guys are going to be the ones to win the championship, when in reality, if that doesn't work for 2 years, now you got 32-year-olds and that aren't playing at their capability anymore, and now you got to dump it. So it's just let's try to get younger guys who, I don't know, are faster and stuff, and hope something changes, just because, again, I'm not doing this 3-point crap again.
And look, what I think will be massive for Adrian Griffin next year is, continue to usher in the development of Marjan Beauchamp.
Yes. Him and AJ Green, I think, are high potential players.
Yeah, like that's the thing is Marjan Beauchamp. Here's the thing. First of all, I knew he wasn't going to play that many games last year. Okay, Budenholzer just doesn't play young guys. He only did it when he had to. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like when he had to start Dante DiVincenzo that 1 year, or really, he doesn't. He just doesn't. He doesn't do it he didn't do it a whole lot when he was the coach. I think Marjan Beauchamp last year, did he go through an inconsistent shooting stretch? Yes. Did he show flashes? Also, yes. So I think that they need to get a coach that's more inclined to play younger guys. Beauchamp, as you just mentioned, AJ Green. Like, and really, that's about it. Like, that's a problem with Milwaukee right now is there's not this like influx of young talent that's like coming in. They don't have a Warriors situation, which at this point now it's not a good situation because that team right now probably would sneak into a 7th seed in the West. The point is, with Milwaukee getting a little older, okay, Brook Lopez is going to be 35, 36, I think, by the start of next year. Griffin also has a lot of decisions he has to make. Okay, how's the offense going to look? Because, God forbid, I watched how the offense was in Toronto the past couple of years. It wasn't good. Okay, they were just running long. Like, that was Toronto's thing, is that, they had 2 true shooters on their roster, and then just a bunch of long guys. Anunoby, Siakam, Boucher, just a bunch of long guys. So, this it wasn't really until the NBA trade deadline where Toronto finally had like a traditional center in Jakob Poeltl. Like, they had a bunch of tweeners playing center. So I think that's the other question is, is Griffin going to want to kind of go back to that Toronto style where they play just amazing defense and, get rid of a guy like Brook Lopez or Chris Middleton? Or, like, are they going to choose both of them? Like that, like if I'm a Bucks fan, that's one of the questions that I'd want to answer like before the season started.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of, obviously you see the rumors every single season, but I think more teams are starting to look at Brook Lopez more, especially like veteran type teams. I've seen him, who was the Lakers rumored going back to Los Angeles. I've seen Houston. You see a lot, but what's crazy is that he honestly, in my opinion, had his best career ever last year, stat wise, play in the paint, and his rim protection was statistically one of his better years. And obviously teams are going to look at him. So that's the decision too of, well, if they get rid of Brook Lopez, that's embarrassing. Brook Lopez, who is going to be their center? Like, who is out there that they could realistically get to fit that role? And to be honest, I don't think there is anyone.
There's not. I already looked at the list. It's pretty. The cupboard's pretty bare there, Evan.
Yeah, it's either you get a younger, worse, like free agent, because you're not going to be able to trade him for some younger top tier, not top tier, but you couldn't like trade Brook Lopez and other guys for DeAndre Ayton or someone of that caliber. So it's almost do you keep Brook Lopez and try something, work through him? Because the situations that you put yourself in if you get rid of him is very low of getting someone at his capability at that age.
And look, Brook Lopez's next contract likely going to be his last. In a perfect world, I'd like Milwaukee to sign him to like a little short-term deal, have him finish his career in Milwaukee. Because look, he's played his best basketball in his entire career
here,
really since he was a Net. So I would like him to finish in Milwaukee. I would like Chris Middleton to finish in Milwaukee, but at the same time, as we all know, the NBA is a business, right? And Chris Middleton didn't play in many games last year. Okay, couple of different injuries, but look. And again, then there's rumors going on about like, oh, him and Giannis had didn't have the best relationship toward the end of last year. I don't know. I read that somewhere, but the thing is, like, I think one of those guys has to stay, and I've long said if one person's production I think can be replaced, it's Middleton's.
Yep, that's what I was hoping you'd say. I think if you were to get rid of one of those players, I think you're going to have a better chance of finding a better Chris Middleton replacement than Brook Lopez, because you can't put Bobby at the center and start. If you keep Bobby, there's no way that's happening. Giannis isn't going to go play center because he can't. It's realistically Chris Middleton, and it's hard to say is more replaceable than Brook Lopez, but with the market and trading capabilities, there's no way they could lose a player like Brook.
Yeah. And look, we're just trying to be realistic here, okay? Because this is not the Chris Middleton from 2021. It's not. Okay, you have to be realistic. It's kind of like, me and Evan are big Brewers fans. Okay, we're not expecting Christian Yelich to put up 2018 MVP numbers again. It's not going to happen. We're not expecting Chris Middleton to turn back into the player that he was before. It's not going to happen. Okay, there's just, when you deal with like knee injuries like that. Okay, when you deal with knee ailments like that, that is a precursor for any NBA player. There's not a lot of NBA players that can recover from that. It's kind of the same thing like when a dynamic player tears his Achilles. It's a precursor. He's not going to go back to the same player that he once was. Okay, just look at Klay Thompson. He tore his Achilles like during the pandemic.
And then the next year.
No, I think he tore. No, I think in 2019 he like tore his ACL, and then I believe 2020 during a workout he like tore his Achilles. This was like hours before the NBA draft started.
Yeah, it was like back-to-back years he was out.
Yeah, and like how's Klay Thompson now? He's still a decent player, but he's not like the the top 50 player that he once was. Like it's extremely hard to expect Chris Middleton to go back to the level that he once played at. And look, it's tough because I still think he can be a solid player, just not like the elite shot maker that we know and love him to be.
Yes, and it's hard because he was such a big piece the last 10 years. But yeah, it's not like you can just give him one more year and see what happens. It's you either got to pay him a crap ton of money or you got to let him go or trade him for someone. And I feel like a trade would be their best scenario.
Yeah, and look, there's going to be teams interested. Okay, I've heard teams like the Dallas Mavericks, which. Again, if you sign Chris Middleton, they're probably not going to re-sign Kyrie Irving because you can't afford both those guys. Or the Houston Rockets.
Yep.
I've heard which having poor Chris Middleton, he's not going to get the ball much. Hey, with the what and honestly for the Rockets, like it wouldn't even make sense to get him because like Jalen Green's a point guard, but don't they have Kevin Porter Jr. in his spot? Or don't they have like Kenyon Martin Jr.? So, like, it wouldn't make sense for the Rockets to get him because they have two high-premium guys already playing his position. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Damian Lillard becomes available.
Yeah, I saw, like, right as the Celtics were eliminated, I saw people, like, swapping Jaylen Brown and Damian Lillard jerseys. I'm like, that would be – because obviously Jaylen Brown has a next contract, but there's no way the Celtics could afford Damian Lillard at that age. He'd be worth like long term what they'd be paying would be like more than what they would pay Jaylen Brown because of the contracts that Lillard has. Yeah, it's who knows where these guys are going, but yeah, realistically, for the Bucks, if they traded him to the Mavericks or Jalen Green or someone younger would benefit them, but not the Rockets.
And by the way, the Chris Middleton for Jalen Green was floated as a possibility.
Yeah, and that would be a steal for the Bucks.
A cost-controlled guy, he can learn how to play team basketball. Whew.
Get coached by a vet like Giannis and Brooke and Drew, and I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. And by the way, the Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard point. Let me try that again. The Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard trade rumor that Evan is bringing up was started by the one and only Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick Perkins started that whole thing of, oh my God, they need to break up the Jays, which by the way, he's been saying it for the past 2 years. Like they got to break up the Jays. Okay, they got to trade Damian Lillard for Jaylen Brown. I was like,
That's just not smart.
I don't understand how this works because isn't Jaylen Brown an unrestricted free agent?
I think so.
Like, look that up because I'm
Yep.
trying to understand like how can he be an unrestricted free agent and yet where he could go anywhere and yet the Celtics can still move him? Would it be before the league year? I'm still trying to like can guys who are unrestricted free agents get moved before free agency?
I don't even remember the whole like team based contract and all those contracts throw me off.
They do. That they do too because it's like because like this whole thing is like, oh well, Jaylen Brown could leave, but it's like, but it's like then they're talking about like potentially trading him. So I'm like, I thought
Yes,
you could only trade players that are like, say they have like a year left in their contract. I don't think they could trade like an unrestricted free agent.
he is unrestricted free agent in 2024.
Okay, so next year.
Yeah, so after this next season.
Oh. So, okay. So he's talking. There are people where people are talking about a situation where Jaylen Brown can be like, I've reached my ceiling here. Like, trade me. Like, is that why people are questioning his future because he's been so ominous about his future that he could potentially be like, look, I don't want to be in Boston anymore. Like, I need you guys to trade me.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this might be I don't know if it's hot take-ish or anything, but Joe Mazzulla is still going to be the coach of the Celtics. If I'm a Celtics fan, that scares me slightly.
Yeah.
Just a tad. Only because of the fact that, Ime Udoka got the most out of this group by helping them advance to the finals. Can Joe Mazzulla do that? I mean, he's a Brad Stevens protege, and, hearing that kind of scares me a little bit. Just because of the fact that we knew how Brad Stevens was as a coach. He wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. It's just they kept falling short of expectations every year. Won a lot of regular season games, but they couldn't get over the hump. So if he's a Brad Stevens protege, like, is that what they could be expecting in Boston? Like, just a really good regular season coach, but can't get him over the hump in the postseason?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talking about Joe Mazzulla, like also not making adjustments and fire Mazzulla, all those posts and comments. So there's got to be something to that he's not doing, very similar to what Budenholzer was doing, where there's something missing that he should be doing that they're not benefiting from. So I feel like adjustment wise, he was barely playing Tatum in some games, and it's a whole fiasco going in Boston, and that's why I want the finals to be done so everything can just happen. I want to see players trade. That's the best part of the year. Best part of the year. I need these finals to hurry up, and they start tonight. But I don't know. I'm curious on what some of these teams are going to do because there's a lot of teams that are in a Bucks situation of do they keep this guy or do they not? Do they give him the max? Do they not? Do they fire the coach or do they keep him? And there's no way they're firing him. No shot.
No, and they've already kind of talked about that, he's going to remain the Celtics coach. Here's what first of all, I think what Joe Mazzulla needs. So, obviously he's had the full year, okay? Mm-hmm. But he's never coached in a playoff atmosphere before. And honestly, you can't be like, well, they need to fire Joe Mazzulla because it's like he did come back down from 3-0. Mm-hmm. Okay? Like it or not, he almost came back from a 3-0 deficit. That's not easy to do. Milwaukee can do it. And look, I think for Boston's sake, when it was going well, that's an unstoppable team. But when it's not, when they have to face adversity, not as good. Mm-hmm. Not as good. And a lot of people don't really know for Boston's roster construction standpoint of, can they still rely on the two J's? Like, Tatum and Brown already got locked up, okay, in terms of their contract extensions. But, who are you choosing? Are you choosing Tatum or are you choosing Brown? Because, in my opinion, I honestly think they should choose Tatum because I think he has the higher ceiling.
Yep.
Yeah, because there are moments. Goodness, Jason Tatum the past 2 years has been, the MVP in December. But can he? Does his play take a bit of a dip? Especially once you get to the postseason, because he's
he
masterful postseason performances.
disappears in the postseason.
I don't even, but like I don't even know if I could say that with conviction, only because of the fact that I watched what he did to the Bucks last year, down 3-2 in the postseason. So he's not like James Harden, where he'll have one good game and then I just don't think Tatum's consistent in the postseason. But look, honestly, for the Celtics' sake, they got to give Joe Mazzulla. First of all, they got to give him some more experienced assistants. I think that's what people have talked about. They lost 3 assistants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're probably going to lose 3 more to Ime Udoka's staff in Houston. They had an assistant leave in the middle of the year for a head coaching job. Like it wasn't easy to deal with what Joe Mazzulla had to deal with. So if they can get like a Frank Vogel type to like be his lead assistant, because it's not easy coaching an NBA game, and especially not easy when you're 34, 35 years old.
Yeah.
It's not.
Players are older than you on the team.
It's not easy. Okay? Like and look, there is no shame in being outcoached by Eric Spoelstra, because let me tell you something, he does that to most people.
Yes.
Most coaches in this league. It isn't saying much. This year he did it to, Mike Budenholzer and like Tom Thibodeau and like, Mazzulla. But still, like we have high respect for Eric Spoelstra. He's a top 3 coach in this league.
Yeah, and it's especially like watching like where he first came from with the Heat organization and how he's worked his way up from, again, like video something to obviously a head coach, 2-time NBA champ. It's just a situation that they're in where you can't, like, the players that they have, you can't really just be, well, we lost at this team. It's Spoelstra. He's a respected coach. It would be very similar to Popovich or something else where it sucks to lose. Yeah, you came back, but in the end, you got to know the coach. You got to know the team. Whether you got the top tier superstars or you got a superstar with some very high end role players, again, it's at the end of the day, it's on the coach, and he knows how to work a team, work with who he's got, and kind of go with it. So it's something that sure sucks, but you can't not complain, but you can't hate on the whole situation that they got in, because again, Bucks lost to them. They got smoked by them. But again, it's not just the players, it's how the players are coached.
And again, you know what? I have high respect for Jimmy Butler. Okay. Not just because of the fact they went to Marquette, although I'll say this, I was pretty young when he was in college. But Jimmy Butler, like, nobody really knows where to put Jimmy Butler, because he's not a great regular season player, but goodness, once he gets to the postseason, he turns into a prime Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've compared him to. He is unstoppable in the postseason. Now, I think there are arguments to be made about in the Heat series against Boston. Well, should he have won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, or should it have been Caleb Martin?
Yep, he was 5-4 votes, I think.
Who, by the way, I'm not really sure there'd be too many NBA fans who'd be able to name Caleb Martin.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard of him. Yeah, he has game. He used to play with his brother in Charlotte.
Yep.
But, like, the true NBA purists, like, really know who Caleb Martin is. There's not too many people who are like, I'm going to be honest with you. There's not really too many people, casual fans, who'd be able to name too many people on the Heat roster. It is rare. Maybe Kyle Lowry, but it's like, when you watch that series, against the Heat, especially being a Bucks fan, like, really, we're being killed by Duncan Robinson and like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, and like, Bam didn't have as good of a series, but like Kyle Lowry's drawing charges, and Kevin Love too. Like,
Mhm.
this is the team that beat us in 5 games, and it makes sense because, first of all, the East wasn't very strong this year. Okay, the 3 teams had concerns about them: Boston, Milwaukee, and Philly. We knew you knew it was gonna be those 3, but you weren't sure, like, you just thought that Boston and Milwaukee was on a crash course to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Heat are like, oh, okay, we're being doubted again. All right, boom, boom, boom. They just dispatched like 3 Eastern Conference teams, and look, I'm happy for the Heat. Okay, do I hope they win this series? No, I would actually like to see Nikola Jokic.
I would too.
But at the same time, if Jimmy Butler wins one, because there were pundits who were like, "Oh, this isn't a guy who you build your team around." Well, he's in the NBA Finals now.
Mhm.
So if Jimmy Butler is going to prove every single person wrong, if he finally breaks through and wins his first championship. Either way, someone's winning their first championship.
Yep.
I would like it to be Jokic, just because of the fact that, they've been pounding, Denver as a team has been pounding on the door for so long, and they've come up short each and every year. So I would like this to be their year this year, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, game 1's tonight. Again, you can't complain on who gets their first one, but it would be a good one for Jokic. Just again, got the MVP hate talks again. Kind of gave the pity one to Embiid, but like you said, the Nuggets, again, first time making the NBA Finals and always coming short in the Western Conference Finals or the second round. And you got this guy like Jokic, who is, in my opinion, it's kind of a hot take, but I think he's a very loved player. I think he doesn't do anything that gets himself in a situation where he knows he shouldn't be in. Humble guy, again, not like focused on the money and the fame. It's play basketball, then go ride his horses back in Serbia, where it's like he's just here to play basketball, and it's very humble guy, like Giannis, kind of not Giannis story, but Giannis mentality. But it'll be an interesting series, and so many people are complaining about it being the Nuggets and Heat. Now no one's going to watch. I would have rather watched this than Celtics Lakers, because I could not have. Yeah, it's people want different in sports, which is what I hate about a lot of these sports with no salary cap. So I'm tired of watching the exact same teams every single year. It's boring. It's boring. Now, does that mean that every team should get a fair chance? Maybe. But watching the same baseball teams, the same football teams every year, it's like, okay, it's kind of boring. We know it's going to end. But yeah, Nuggets Heat is, you could have told me at the beginning of the year, is that what I would have put the NBA Finals to be? Absolutely not. Maybe the Nuggets, the Heat now.
No, and the argument, now that it's like, because, everybody talks about NBA script writers and, this is how they scripted this. Like, now the whole argument's going to be, will the NBA Finals take a dip this year with these two teams playing? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, it's more exciting.
Yeah, you're going to get all the Nuggets fans. You're going to get all the Heat. There's no way it does.
Okay, let's think about this. How many, I haven't met too many Nuggets fans in my life. Frankly, I haven't met too many Heat fans in my life. And again, us being from Wisconsin, we're not going to meet many Lakers fans. Okay. Maybe, you meet Bulls fans, and, you kind of meet teams in your same general area.
Yep.
But I've asked my brother this question because he's out in Colorado. I asked him, I'm like, Andrew, who are like the teams in Colorado? And he said it goes Broncos, Avalanche. I don't think he said Rockies, but like Nuggets are like third or fourth in that city. Like it's just like it's not that people don't care about the Nuggets, but it's just like I feel like it's always going to be a Broncos town.
Yep.
And as far as Miami, I don't know. To me, there's, I get it. It's a beautiful city. Okay, it's not as what I like to call a dump. That was only because that when they were trying to poach Giannis, I was like, please not go around one race kids in that dump, which relatively speaking it is. Miami, I don't know. For me, there's just too much to do. It's kind of like LA to me, where it's just like there's just way too much to do. I don't know how many diehard Heat fans there are. I mean, like I don't know if they fully appreciated LeBron being there. Like I don't know if it was like the best time in their lives, but I mean, like it's gonna be. It's a matchup between two franchises that aren't known for having like just rabid fan bases.
Yeah, and I think for the NBA wise, like when you have LeBron in every NBA finals for the last how many years, and you got Curry and stuff, and I think big thing NBA wise, whether it's Heat or Nuggets fans, I think a lot of people are just happy for something new, where it's not the same two teams or the same two guys every single year, which is what I'm excited for.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff is ending to me because 2021 it was the Bucks and it was the Suns. 2022, all right, whatever. The Warriors got back in, but then it was the Warriors and the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
So from the Eastern Conference perspective, I don't know. It was new just because of it. The only reason why it was new is because from the East they didn't really know who was going to win. Because if it's not LeBron, then it's like, then like who's it gonna be from the East? Because as you know, I hated playing against LeBron, especially in the Eastern Conference, because
he was there
every year. It was frustrating. I was like, somebody has to knock LeBron off his perch, and nobody ever did. Boston came close in 2018. Nobody in the Eastern Conference was able to knock LeBron off his perch. And, eventually he had to run into a few good West teams, lose. But it was just, we knew we were expecting in the East. It wasn't even top heavy. It wasn't good. It was just LeBron could have like 60 wins. Okay. Do everything himself, get to the finals,
and then
lose. That's what it was. And, I knew Milwaukee didn't have a shot once LeBron was in Miami. Because I was like, well, shit. We're not going to get to the finals now. With that team, I mean, it was. Look, I hope for a good series. That's how I hope for, because and let's remember this: the Nuggets have been off for about a week, and the Heat. People are going to say the Nuggets are more fresher, but let's think about it from this perspective. The Nuggets are a little more rusty, just because they haven't played basketball in a week.
The Heat have not stopped playing the entire season because of the play, and then it's like they have not stopped playing. It's like they've had another 20 games in their season. So I could see them taking game one. I think the Nuggets will win in 5 or 6, but I think the Heat have the potential of taking the game just because of the consistency in their playing.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I mean, I could side with you on that. I do think the Nuggets are going to win the series. I think the Heat will make it competitive. Look, there's just no answer for Jokic. Okay, what I've said before is what wins championships in this league is good core players. Okay, that's the case every single year. The Nuggets have not just Jamal Murray and Jokic, but Michael Porter Jr. and Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And Christian Brown. Brown. Sorry, Brown. I want to say Brown, but it's Brown. They have good players like that who have been a core member of that team all season. So, and that's what's going to win. And that's going to win them. And look, the Heat's roster is basically a roster filled with like bench players, guys who need to step up to win the series. The Gabe Vincents, the Max Struces, the Duncan Robinsons of the world. Like that's who's Miami's filled with. It's a group of misfits, undrafted players, talented players, but undrafted players, and somehow have made an improbable run to the finals. Like you won't. Like a lot of people wanted to say like the NBA is rigged. I think the Heat making it to the finals has completely ended that argument. They were 3 minutes away from their season ended by the Chicago Bulls. And now it's like an 8 seed makes it to the finals. Like 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't have seen that happen.
Yeah, it's barely happened in like the last couple decades. Obviously, you had the Mavs and the Warriors, but it's so unlikely where people were like bashing the Bucks. Oh, they lost, and then you see Jimmy Butler smoke the Knicks. Obviously, that was going to happen. But then you see him take the 3-0 lead. Yeah, they almost blew it, but did they? No, they still were able to hold on to it. So it's a different breed of an 8th seed, it's a bizarre thing to say, but teams are just the seedings are just so different because there's so many teams who are still highly competitive no matter what seed they get, and they see that they're the underdogs and they got like a chip on their shoulder, a little more pressure, and they have to try to outperform because of who they're playing and the favorites and who they're up against.
Yeah, that series is so interesting to me because it felt like what the Heat were doing was like toying with Boston because they knew they had the mental edge over the Celtics. I'm not saying they were the better team, but they had the mental edge over the Celtics. And, Heat jump out to a 3-0 lead quickly. And then all of a sudden, Boston comes all the way back and like Heat are still like, okay, all right. 19, like win by 19 points, just right on your head. And, they just knew it. I think the Heat knew it that, okay, all right. It's cute. You think you're going to, like, go to the NBA Finals. And then, like, Jason Tatum twists his ankle 20 seconds into the first quarter, and it was curtains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know if I'm assuming you saw it, but that video of the Jimmy Butler DM where that guy was like, finish this shit, Jimmy. That was so funny. And like he kind of knew, like, based off of like his facial expressions and kind of like the very short like sayings that he had about like the confidence level in the Heat just kind of show that there's no way that they were losing that game, especially going into Boston. They knew what they had to do, and man, they came out strong. I was worried. I don't like either of those teams, but I was really rooting for the Heat, and I'm glad because I was watching the end of the Game 6, and I saw that go in, and my heart dropped. But it's good to see them succeed, though. Like you can't hate on it. It's not like they destroyed the Bucks and then the Knicks whooped them, and then it was like, cool, the Bucks just got destroyed by a team who sucked. It's like they're literally in the finals right now, so I don't feel as bad about the Bucks loss anymore.
No, honestly, and like this season has to go well for Adrian Griffin, because if it doesn't, okay, if this say the Bucks go out in like the first round again, then what the argument could be is, did John Horst make a rash decision to fire Coach Budenholzer? Because now it's like, with the way the Heat have been performing, I'm like, geez, like if they would have lost in the second round, I would have been like, all right, yeah, we should probably move on. But the fact that Heat made it to the finals, and again, do I fully support the decision to fire Coach Budenholzer? I do. You can't lose. Even like, I'm not saying like, well, losing the series is bad. You can't lose in 5 games.
Yeah, and
that wasn't like Damian Lillard could say all he wants. Oh, now they're fighting championship coaches. No, you can't lose to an 8 seed in 5 games. You just can't. If it won 7 and the Heat want to close one, fine. We cut our losses. 5 games. That's a gentleman's sweep. You can't do that to an 8 seed without like Tyler Hero, and eventually later in the series, Victor Oladipo went out.
Mhm.
So he were basically playing shorthanded, and they had leads in that series too, which made it like more frustrating.
Yeah, and one of the big things is when you're the title favorite for multiple years, you're not going to win it every single year. Like, it's not as realistic anymore. But when you're not even making the finals, you're not even making out of the second round outside of the year that they won, it just kind of shows.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the Warriors, sure, they won quite a few. Did they lose 2? Yes. So that's realistically what the Bucks kind of were looking at. Get to the finals, do as best you can to win, but you got to consistently be making Eastern Conference finals in the finals. Otherwise, it's what are you doing, essentially?
True, and that is why Giannis helped hire the new coach. So, and I mean, look, I know me and Evan got off on a tangent, but it's like there's really nothing more we can say. Okay, they hired the coach. It is what it is. What it is. I mean, the options that were out there. Nick Nurse, I wasn't high on him. Kenny Atkinson, I felt he is a better coach for someone like the Pistons. He's a developmental coach, but he's not a coach that you bring in to win a championship. He's not. He had one good year with the Nets in which they got lost in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't pounding the table being like, we need to hire Kenny Atkinson. I'm not. Like, that's not a coach that you hire to, oh, well, that's the guy that's going to bring us over the hump. It's going to be Kenny Atkinson. No, I think he's better with young teams, not like to coach a title contender. And for Adrian Griffin, I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he just, maybe that team just needs to make like subtle adjustments. I'm not sure. Because look, that was Buno's whole thing is he couldn't make adjustments when they needed him to.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's think about this. Adrian Griffin was on the staff with Nick Nurse at the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals, meaning he was a part of the game plan on how to slow down Giannis.
Yep.
Be like, all right, well, Giannis is going to be able to get at the paint at will, so we're going to force the other guys to beat us. Knowing the fact that Milwaukee didn't really have like a good team around him. I mean, okay, Chris Middleton was okay. I don't think Brook Lopez really came into his own yet. But, when you have to, like, Toronto eventually smartened up. We're like, oh my goodness. If we just let like Eric Bledsoe and Malcolm Brogdon, and if Nikola Mirotic is jacking up shots, we're going to win this series. Like, all we have to do is just slow down the head of the snake, and the rest will follow. And that is exactly what happened. And that is why I wholeheartedly believe in Adrian Griffin as the next Bucks head coach, because I think he has the ability to make adjustments defensively to slow guys down.
Yep. And for the teams who are trying to stop Giannis of how to work around it.
And again, me and my friend were like, we were debating what the Bucks offense really came down to, because what it turned into was, all right, Giannis, well, I know this is the playoffs, but just do what you did in the regular season. Just make something amazing happen. And I don't know. It's frustrating to watch sometimes, because sometimes I didn't know what our offensive identity was, because it felt like we're just going to jack up shots and,
let's hope it works.
Let's just hope it works.
Yeah, wish for the best or hope for the best, and we'll see what happens.
And poor Drew Holiday, he had to get on that podcast and say, oh yeah, Jimmy Butler busted my ass.
Yep.
Now we know he did, okay? And there's no shame in that, Drew. I'm not blaming you. It's not that you didn't play good defense. It's just that
you went off.
I found it funny. What I found funny is when Drew Holiday was like, I don't think prime Michael Jordan would have stopped him. I don't think LeBron James would have stopped him. There was no stopping Jimmy Butler that series. I found that to be the funniest part of that exchange with on that podcast, where he was like, I don't think Scottie Pippen could have stopped it. Like, he was just like, he was basically saying no human on earth would have stopped Jimmy Butler that series. I think he was right, honestly, because I
Yeah.
think he went nuclear. Maybe a double team would have helped, but Jimmy Butler is also a really good passer. So it's like you can't take the good with the bad. Evan, you got anything else?
No, again, finals start tonight. So I would say once the finals are over and there's some NBA news going on, will probably be our next time, I would assume. And again, slowly get through the summer, and sooner or later the Bucks season will be starting again.
Yeah. So again, like Evan said, maybe free agency. Unless like if Milwaukee makes a trade before then, we'll probably record. But it's I can wholeheartedly say right now we're probably not going to be recording for the draft because Milwaukee doesn't have any draft picks, unfortunately.
Yep.
So it'll probably be the next month or so.
Yeah, once a couple moves have been made, it won't be one for every single move because that would be repetitive. But yeah, once they start making moves and the NBA is going strong in the summer, which is again one of the best times of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, once the Bucks are making moves, we'll be back.
Who knows? Maybe to get some, like how they do for spring training for MLB players. Maybe me and Evan will start recapping G League games.
G League, Summer League.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I meant. I meant Summer League. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll recap a couple of Summer League games. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to this special edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, and we'll see you whenever. See you soon. Yeah.